when I have the possibility to give my fellow ambassador, there are 34 anyway, at the OECD, just one copy of the book, I got always the question that, I got two questions. When did you wrote it? That was the first question, and I said what normally my professor told all of me when we asked, how can we learn so things? They said, okay, the day is 24 hours and a night, so that, where can you just write it? The second was, why did you write it? And I think this leads partly to the back to the Hungarian economy and to the economic situation where we are. At the OECD, we have always end of March the biggest event. We call it OECD Forum. That means more than 3,000 people are there, the whole global press and so on. And in year 16, we had the pleasure that Hungary was the vice chair of the ministerial meeting, and the forum is beforehand. So 10 Hungarian young entrepreneur startups were there. And they have been there because the OECD invited them to take part in the forum. So they invited Esther Oswald, maybe she is here, maybe not, but she will come later on. She gets a small company called Notch interfaces. When you know it, you don't know it. It's a small company producing something variable digital things. When you are running, you can analyze how are you running, and I have the habit to run long distance, so I was also interested in this case how this is working. But the main question was why the OECD invited a small Hungarian startup to the biggest event. And when we had a discussion, I had the impression that there is a good reason for it. You know, how the Notch interfaces works. The Notch uses small sensors put on the body. They produces it in Shenzhen in China. The development part of the company is here in Budapest, 6 people around. And the management center is now in New York because that is, America is the main market. And the news is in that whole case that we have seen this kind of global chain. When you just look at when you have an iPhone on the back that is written, designed in California by Apple and produced in China. Big companies make this very, very long, very complicated global value chains. Now what we have is quite new, that small companies could do the same. Or to put it another way, to create global value chains became more democratic, available for the people. So after that came me the idea that how just this short story influences the economic thinking what we have. At the OECD, we are very proud of that we are a cutting-edge, bleeding-edge think tank of the world, which is partly true. But partly through that we have also discussing many enigma in the economy. One of that is why the trade in the last 5-10 years, the world trade growth is slower. And we don't know exactly why. There are many reasons for that. It could be that we can't measure it really, because partly of that are digital. And partly of that, what is traded is not measurable in a traditional way. It could be that because of trade restriction and policy and other things, but and it could be also that partly what we have seen in the economy, we can call it as a servitization, very complicated word, but services are normally local. You can scale up services, certainly, some kind of services, but most are local. But the main reason for it, that the trade went to digital. And that is why we have seen huge changes in the global value chain. And after that came the idea, so let's look at all the details, what we are experiencing now, what I call in that case, in English sense is better, tectonic shifts. So tectonic big shifts and changes in the global economy and in the economy in itself, which is driven by the technology. Because of the limited time, and I think we will have later on the discussion for that, I will just touch upon 3 points, and maybe from a little bit European point of view, which I would say that the first change or big shift, what I would say rather Europe's lost battle. The second would be what we should win, Europe must win battle. I like the battles in that case. And the third will be the battle that we can win or can be won battle. So it is 3. The first one, I think we see that is happening, know how the business models are changing with a platform and a platform economy. And at the same time, how the consumer muster and patterns are changing. Beyond is what we simply call a platform economy. I recall just the picture, I think it's early last year, published by the economist Mark Zuckerberg, was shown as a Roman emperor and with a sign that's connect and rule or conquer. Just to paraphrase a little bit the Roman phrase, with the idea when you connect people or connects in the economy, you can rule and you can have the market position increased and so on. But I think the real phrase is the real old British or old Roman divide and rule or divide and conquer. Because beyond all these platforms, what you can see, and we see, and we can see a lot of them, not just Facebook and the others, beyond is a special kind of market, what the economists call as a two-sided markets. So platform in the inside, and there are 2 markets, what they connected, they provide 2 different products. In the case of Facebook, one is a social network, and the others for the advertiser, the possibility to get advertisement through that and connect them. Google make the same, and many others have 2 different product on that, and connected by the platform which is run by algorithm, big data, and so on. And it is cross-financed. Cross-finance means that one part is sometimes free of charge, and the other they have to pay for it. So they have because there are 2 different markets. They are networks, and they use the networks effects, what the economists say in that case. And with the networks effect, they can grow relatively rapidly. And when they grow rapidly, they have also the possibility to, they have a tendency to monopoly, what we see today. We can complain that the Google and the Facebook and the others, so big they are and how dominant they are, but because they are driven by this economic model. And at the same time, we have also seen the changes from the consumer pattern, how they are changing. They are mostly driven, or we think they are driven by the new generation, Generation Z and others, so that the new generation is rather more sensitive to the new models, which we call a sharing economy or peer-to-peer economy. But the basic beyond is that digitalization lowers the barriers to market entry for companies and for people. And that's the basic news in the whole platform economy. Why I call it as a lost battle for Europe? Because these monopoles are there. In Brussels, we can think about how to tax it. Yeah, that is always a good question, how to tax it. But they are there, so that is what happened. And in that case, what they use and what are the main product, they are the data. What kind of data? All personal and private data. And I think when you look at just the figure, Facebook has more than 2 billion users now. So all private or personal data are there. The good news is there will be the next battle. So the first battle on personal data and how to pick around a new economic model, Europe has lost. The second is, I think what is coming now is rather around the public data and the industrial data, how to use it in the industry. And in that case, Europe has much better chances than for the first. So all these made a huge change, what I call rather a miraculous transformation, or a magical transformation. What we see in every day. The main transformation is that today, in some part of the economy, driven by platforms, access to services or to goods are more important than the ownership. Services are more important than the industrial products. Platforms increase the market efficiency, not the production efficiency. We have platforms instead of companies, and there are also some changes in the production, in the employment structure. So that is the miracle, how an industrial product will be changed into a service. Just look at the car. Yeah? We think sometimes the car, how to use and how have the access to the cars in different ways, carpooling, car sharing, and so on. As we can download the music, we can download the car, right? Instead of the whole thing. So this change the economic structure and pattern in a very, very fast way. The second, what I would say is a battle, or Europe's battle, when you would like in that case, is a must-win battle. Must-win means if Europe wants to remain competitive, this battle must win. So there are no other possibility. We should win it. And this is the use of the new technologies. We have seen some new technologies in that case. Let's start with the most well-known new technology, robotics, and with the robots. So I just recall the example of Adidas. Adidas is a company producing yearly 300 million pairs of shoes for running. Yeah. And in the last 2 decades, they were produced in Southeast Asia, in China, Vietnam, Indonesia. Just look at the label. Now they opened last year a company fully robotized with 106 people producing 500,000 pairs of shoes, and the factory is in Ansbach in Bavaria. So robotics make it possible to move back the production after the 2 decades of globalization to the consumer, to Europe, or back to our countries. And this will change many, many things. And this change also the global value chain, what I started at the very beginning. They don't need to build up long value chain with many suppliers throughout the world, combining many continents and so on, and organizing all these. But they can put these robotized factories, 160 people, yeah, producing 500,000 pairs of shoes where the consumer are living. The similar effect we have heard 3D printing. I remember very well, I think 5 years ago, Bob Nail from the Singularity University was in Budapest and had a presentation on 3D printing, and started with that he took off his shoe because he printed his own shoe by 3D printing. At first scanned and after that printed. And yeah, it was a good example what you can do with that. But after a while, it is also possible to do that. My good example in that case, the Gemio is a French company, how to get tailor-made and a small-scale production of rings, for example. The customer can choose at first by 3D models, the different what kind of ring they want. After that, they print the frame of the ring, and after that, the goldsmith put the gold in it and so on, and will be ready and cheaper around 40%. And it is really small-scale and tailor-made product. That is where the 3D printing is, I think, really a game changer. And a game changer not just in a way that I can get in that case small-scale product, but we will be able in a near future that we will become as a prosumer, productor and consumer at the same time. So I can make for myself all these. And the result is the same, that the production is moving where the consumer are. We don't need these long, big, very complicated global chains. And the third big technology, I don't want to go in all these technologies, but we have seen in detail. I will call just the digitalization. We heard the driverless car or the self-driving car. When Google started it, it was very funny to read how they announced that now we will work on the driverless car. And they started that the founding fathers, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, they wanted always to have the people. Yeah? And one of the problems is the traffic. No, we are working on a driverless car. So simple. Yeah? That when the people have some problem, we would like to solve it. Certainly it's more complicated. But when you look at how this will change the car industry, currently, around 70% of the value added at the car making are made by the manufacturer, the well-known names, the brands, and 30% from different other suppliers from car parts. When we will have the driverless car or the self-driving car, 40% will be around what we normally call as a car, and 60% will be digital technology, mobility provider and other software and hardware. So it will change also in this case everything. So why we should win it? Because Europe should win it, otherwise won't be competitive. This will change the whole structure of the global economy, the trade and many other things. This has the consequence that the global value chain will be shorter, more democratic, just think back to the notch, and it will influence how economy is working now. And the third, where I think we have the chances to win, I would call it, or the Europe's can be one battle, I will call it battle for the new innovation ecosystem. Just two examples. All these, what we had seen here, technologies, they could be implemented certainly in the business life. They could be implemented in the industry. We call it today as an Industry 4.0. But Industry 4.0 coming from when the German Chancellor went to an exhibition in Hanover and have seen the new technologies, and after that they needed some slogan to it, that is Industry 4.0. But Industry 4.0 is not something you go to the shop and, I would like to have on the shelf, yeah, Industry 4.0 to my company. Yeah? That is more complicated. It is a combination and use of many technologies, collaborative robots, 3D printing, artificial intelligence in the life of the company or in the industrial production. And this make it possible also that the workers communicate with machine and also machine communicate with machine. Yeah, that is rather the future. How Industry 4.0 works, the key word here is ecosystem. It is not enough to go to the shop that, please, I would like to buy, I don't know, so this Industry 4.0. You have to implement to your company. Every company has quite different position and situation in that case. How can they use it? So they need an ecosystem. That means they need large companies, they need the universities, they need the angel investors, they need the startups. So all that should have been put together to have a successful change in Industry 4.0. So the key word and the crucial point here is the ecosystem. Those countries will be successful by implementing Industry 4.0, which is normally the digital technology implemented in the industry, when the countries are able to create this kind of ecosystem. The second, where we will have the chance and where we have the big challenge as a new innovation system, as I mentioned, the basic rule is digitalization lowers the barrier to market entry and also to the entry to the innovation. So Yossi Wadi, he has the nickname in that case that Mr. Tech Israel had a presentation once at the OECD, and he said that the age of the generals are over. And he meant in that case that the General Electric and the General Motors, as big companies running the innovation, General Eisenhower as the military could run also. Today you need just a laptop and the internet connection and sitting in a cafe and you can start a business. So digitalization lowers the entry and make it possible, and that is, I hope, the future in innovation, that the innovation will be more democratic, more mass phenomenon. When you look at just the history, we have heard the first and the other industrial revolutions. We had industrial revolution when the innovation was open for everybody. It was in the first industrial revolution. That's the same when you look at how qualified these guys were at that time. So all in all, we have these three big challenges. At the first, what I said, Europe lost battle, I think we have to prepare to win the next battle in that case, with the consequence how the consumer patterns are changing and how platforms are using this model. The second, with the must-win battle, we have to be cautious on that, how global value chains are transforming. What does it mean when we call it reshoring as a opposite of the offshoring, when the production will come back? Not the jobs. Those jobs which were, let's say, exported or moved to Asia during the globalization won't come back. They will be the new jobs, quite different. And also the requirement will be quite different. And the third one, which is, I think, for the future discussion, would be rather interesting, how to create such an environment, innovation ecosystem, which could help the companies, also companies that would like to implement Industry 4.0, and also those which could make Europe more competitive. Thank you so much for your kind attention.